Another one for the books.
Indeed, yet another consistently amazing run of sets. Going back to pretty much August. And David, why don't you run down the set list?
That's right. We've been doing this since the middle of August. It's amazing. Iko,
Right.
Shakedown Street into Ship of Fools, Brown Eyed Women, Crazy Fingers into Here Comes Sunshine, and Going Down the Road Feeling Bad. There's no such thing as a mundane song anymore in this band. I remember that there were years in the Grateful Dead when a given song would be one. Okay, well, I'm not thrilled to hear that. And I have to admit that Going Down the Road Feeling Bad was one of those in a lot of years because a lot of times they played it too fast and stuff. So to hear it just completely coming alive in a new way in the hands of these guys, and to hear what John Mayer, an accomplished blues guitarist, is bringing to this, it's like a whole new thing, a lovely experience for this old geezer deadhead here.
Yes, indeed. That little channel from Crazy Fingers into Here Comes Sunshine was especially lovely. Kind of another nice Jeff and John moment. They kind of created the architecture of that transition, and it was just exquisite. Hey, we're going to tell you very quickly because there's a short window of time tonight that this is the halftime show. It's called Dead Air with Lambert and Gans. I'm Lambert, he's Gans. It's a 50-50 proposition. And we just want to let you know that if you're watching this in free preview mode, what you're getting here is this little talk show, and then we will go and have the beginning of the second set for you to sample. If you like what you see, you can buy the whole show from nugs.net by going to livedead.co. So that's a wonderful thing. We've been telling you about it all along, so you probably know by now. And of course, if you've already bought the feed, you don't need us to help you at all. Listen, we want to get to our guests right away. One of our favorite podcasts out there in the world right now is called Comes a Time, and it features our dear friend O.T.L. Burbridge and the gentleman you're about to meet. His name is Mike Fenoya. He's a very versatile person. He's a stand-up comic and a writer. He's done all kinds of improv comedy. Really, really a cool guy. We've gotten to know him a little bit, not in person, but online and stuff. He's been on our radio show. And it's a fantastic podcast. So without further ado, let's introduce Mike Fenoya and another very special guest.
Hi.
It's O.T.L.
What's up?
Great time, man.
Going where those chilly winds don't blow. Huh, brother? I knew you were good. I was like, yeah, I'm feeling that tonight. Yeah.
Fresh off the stage, and our very first band member guest of this tour, and the last as well, because we only have a few days left. But we're so happy it's you, and we're so happy to have you and Mike together because David and I are huge fans of the podcast. David's been a guest on the podcast. I hear I might be invited on sometime soon. All right, yeah, we're working on that. So first, O.T.L., before we get to talking about Comes a Time, which we will be very happy to do, David and I have been so thrilled to watch every show of this tour, courtesy of nugs.net, and host these things. And we can't stop raving about the quality of the playing, the consistency of the playing, and the depth of the conversation on this tour. I've been a big fan of Dead and Company from the start, but it really seems to have yet again ascended to another level this tour. How are you feeling about it?
I feel the same way. I think it's the isolation, the tour bubble. If anybody gets infected, the whole tour is canceled. And, you just have this the specter, this cloud hanging over your head. And it's lonely out here this time, man. It's not, you never see your friends. I don't see my wife. So when you actually get on stage, it's the only time you get to get it all out. And you have that feeling kind of like this could be the last gig. Like we could go on lockdown again. Like who knows what's going to happen. So, I mean, that last leg, we didn't have one bad night. I was like, wow, it was something. And this tour has kind of been the same.
It's been a real knockout to me. This is the first time, because I've been working this tour. This is the first time I've really like listened to every show on a Dead and Company tour live, and I've just been blown away by it. And I have to also mention that my wife Rita is a big fan of your singing, Oteil. I had to get that in.
Tell her I said thank you very much.
Yeah,
What's been kind of wild is like Oteil and I will chat, and this tour has been chased by crazy weather from the very start in Virginia up through New York, and the floods and all of it. It's like the storms were just totally chasing you guys like around the entire country. The fires, everything.
Yeah, it just puts that intention on the gig when you're like, what's going on? Like everything's so crazy, and then you get on stage and that, like you say, the jams just go. So it's been really something. And, I think I'd set a record at Red Rocks, 34 degrees.
Wow.
You needed like the college football players, like the front pouch that you keep your hands warm in between songs.
Well, you know what they actually have? John Mayer's guitar tech, Jeremy, shout out to Jeremy, God bless you. There's these gloves that they make that you can actually play guitar with. I was like, what? He said, yeah, John didn't use them in the studio. And he let me, they were a little too small, but I got a pair that's bigger. And you can play when they look flesh colored, so people probably didn't even notice. But that second night at Red Rocks, I had gloves on almost the whole night. Yeah. So that's impressive. Really helped, And it's been true.
I don't want we have to kind of compress this into a short time period. I want to hear about how you guys got together and how you came to do this great podcast.
Mike, I'll let you take the lead on that.
I had Oteil on a podcast of mine, David, that you were on, called Amigos, on the Great Osiris Network, all the great music podcasts. And we had it was between the Dead & Co shows at MSG in Nassau in November, right before the pandemic and all that. And we got to talking, and we were supposed to do about a half hour. And then 2.5 hours later, we were both in tears, like, are we brothers, dude? This is freaking ridiculous. Like right away, we became super tight friends, and we kept in touch. And Oteil was in the city for the Almonds at the Beacon, and he came to see me at the Comedy Cellar, and our friendship was solidified by the fact that we were greeted by one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in the West Village. He came to see me, and a Ford F-350 came ripping down McDougal Street in the West Village.
Careening.
It was missing its front passenger side tire. So this truck came ripping down the road, and Oteil and I both Oteil scaled a fence at one of the NYU buildings. I crouched behind a tree, and this truck went careening by us, sparks and smoke and all this. Like we had a near-death experience, like one of our first hangs together, and we kind of looked at each other, and it's like, I think we got work to do.
It was a sign. We both took it as a sign of things to come, and boy, were we right. Jeez, man.
Next thing we know, the pandemic was here.
Yeah,
and all that.
You could go through that and then look at the other and go, geez, you're a fucking jinx.
No, I felt like, because we've had such a mystical connection the whole time. What's that Jim Henson quote? They haven't invented a word yet.
They don't have a word yet for old friends that you just met.
Yeah.
And that's
Nice.
that was it's very interesting. And we connected on a lot of he went on the road. Oteil will turn to comedy as like a respite in the hotel or whatever. And I turned to music when I'm on the road doing comedy. So that was interesting. And then just a lot of spirituality and just some experiences that we've had mystically and psychedelic and otherwise. And it's just all fit perfect. And we go, we should do a podcast one day. And then the earth handed us a pandemic. So we were like, I think we could do that podcast we were talking about.
He's like, you ever heard of this thing called Zoom? I was like, no, I have no idea what that is. But we hit it, and we did 2 a week, every week for a year. And it's been really crazy because we've been, it's just all about connection, It's been therapy for us. And we've had some really amazing connections with fans out there that were, kind of using the podcast to help get them through the pandemic, just like we do. And we actually have a live thing coming up that we wanted to plug, where we really get to connect with the fans. It's called the Crystal Ball, and it's going to be on November 17th at 9 p.m. And the fans are going to be the guests. So they'll be in the crystal ball, get to ask their questions, send in a video question, or participate in the live chat. So we're super psyched about that because connection's our thing. Tuning into the good frequencies and connecting.
Beautiful.
And you know what the beautiful, you know what the great thing is too, is that like we've been able to talk to everyone from John to Billy and Bob and Mickey,
everybody, Mickey, Billy.
Parrish. You know what's been amazing is like the folks we have on about mental health, the folks we have that are just being vulnerable and honest and sincere, and the fans reach out and are like, those are the ones that they love the most, and that's incredible to us that, people are finding us for the reason that we wanted to do this. And that's the really beautiful thing.
Yeah, I've got to say the one thing I really appreciate about this podcast is that it's obviously Grateful Dead themed in many ways. You've had lots of Grateful Dead people and associates of the Dead and all that, but it doesn't totally live inside the Grateful Dead bubble. You open up to the wider world, to a broader range of ideas and art forms and philosophies and cosmology and pharmacology and all that stuff. And that to me, in its own way, it's very Grateful Dead, because the Grateful Dead were always this portal to all these other worlds. You could have Phil Lesh turning you on to Charles Ives, or Mickey Hart talking about Papua New Guinea and all that stuff. So your podcast is very much in that spirit by not being so obsessed with the Grateful Dead. So I really appreciate that.
You remember that movie Soul that came out, and they had this guy in there. He was part of a group they called Mystics Without Borders. And me and Mike were like, yes, that's it right there. Mystics Without Borders. It's the portal to all that's good. That's on that good frequency, So you guys are doing the same thing,
I spent 10 years as a music journalist, but I found that most of the artists that really, people want to have conversations about stuff, and you can dispense with this business, the reason for the interview, in a few minutes. And then you can talk about life with people. Some of the best interviews I ever had sort of strayed away from the current album and just got into what's worth talking about.
My favorite thing is people. I want to hear, because everybody past a certain age has gone through something, something that took them down, whether it's their own doing or something else. I'm interested in how they got back up, because that's what I feel like life just deals you. You're not going to escape it. So, what do you do then? That's where the grace comes in and the mystical stuff happens. And without fail, there's always something. It's like, something magic helped us to get over the hump when we just thought we were all the way down. Like when there was no hope. I never get bored of that.
If you're just joining us, the name of the podcast is Comes a Time, and it's available on the Osiris Podcast Network. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, it's cool. I was just about to say that, like, the listeners and the viewers and stuff get to see the episodes, but when we're interviewing someone or we're talking to someone, whether it's a professor at Yale or Stanley Krippner or Paul Stamets or Jim Fadiman or whoever it may be, the most amazing moment is when the guest leaves and Oteil and I are able to kind of like just look at each other and be like, holy shit, like it happened again, man. It doesn't matter who the guest is. It just, the cream rises to the top, the conversation cream always. And right now it's all just, Oteil nailed it when we first started doing this. We were talking about like, what is this podcast? And he's like, I'm interested in like how we got here and where do we go from here? And that's been like the mantra ever since. And it's like an unspoken thing, man. Our guests even like, they just happen to know like, this is what it's going to be about. I mean, David, you came on and we didn't go like, we're going to talk about this, we're going to talk about that. But an hour and a half later, we're like, we did it again.
I was particularly impressed with the fact that, that the just checking your mic and saying, hi, how are you? Just sort of immediately just rolled right into a conversation. And at some point I thought, there's no formal interview happening here. We're just doing it. And you're right.
Exactly.
It went on for like an hour and a half. It just completely flowed like we've known each other for years. It was great.
Yeah.
It's just like playing
It's been
music.
such an
Man.
unbelievable honor.
Yeah.
And the listeners are so fantastic, and just to hear that people had this podcast to listen to maybe help them. We had one of the most profound episodes we had was with a gentleman named Alex Peavy, who is suffering from, I believe, stage 4, right, Oteil? Stage 4 cancer. And he gave us the biggest compliment. He said, "I'm able to sleep to your podcast." And that, I get that as someone who can't sleep, who's got like just a wheel of criticism all night long, to be able to have something that reckoning is what I sleep to, which is why it's my favorite album. So the fact that we give him the peace of mind to be able to kind of like relax was like, wow, that's a really incredible thing. And we had him on as a guest, and we don't want to do this to like, oh, we have to interview this person or that name or whatever. We just want the people that are honest and open and vulnerable and willing to chat about like this weird trip we're on.
It's extremely weird trip we're on. Hey guys, to get back to music for 1 second, please tell me on these broadcasts that you can hear the bass well.
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
I
get all these comments. I get all these comments on Instagram. Man, I can't hear the bass. Turn the bass. I'm like, dude, I can't do it.
There must be listening on tiny computer speakers or something. Well, I'm listening on the Klipsches in my living room, and the mixes are spectacular.
Excellent.
Yeah, and your part in the conversation is like really, we can hear it really well. We can hear the counterpoints you're playing. We can hear the melodic invention. We can hear how you're simultaneously holding down the bottom and keeping things moving. One of my favorite quotes about the bass is Ron Carter once said, people call me the anchor of the band. I don't want to be an anchor. An anchor is the thing that's hidden under water, sitting there getting rusty, and it keeps the boat from moving. I ain't keeping the boat from moving. So
can we go back to your mindset thing, though? I really want to. We musicians can leave the stage with a little regret here and there about a clam, or an imperfect note, or missing the thing or something else. But you really, what I've heard from you and other comedians is that you guys die 1,000 deaths every night. And I want to know how you survive.
On a good night. On a good night, it's Steve Martin in his book Born Standing Up nailed it. He said that stand-up comedy is the ego's last stand. And I think that's the truth, because it's like you can't, man, I'll tell you, I call Oteil at odd hours. Like I'll be driving back from a gig and I'm just explaining this weird thing that it's just been incredible the way that post-pandemic, it really does feel like a blessing every time I get up and have the ability to perform. And I feel like the crowds enjoy it. And just like being in the crowd at concerts, I mean, when I'm not doing stand-up, I was at the Capitol Theater this week, and it's just amazing to be in the audience or be on stage or be a part of any live anything, and just enjoy that moment. And I really, stand-up is a fun thing, because right now everybody's starving for some sort of truth or some sort of story or some sort of, oh, I understand you don't sleep either and you hate yourself and all this other stuff.
I've been a comedy fan. I've been a comedy fan my whole life. Have had comedy writers in my family, and it's great to hear Oteil say his refuge is in comedy and yours is in music, because I've always seen a connection, and stand up. It's very akin to music because there's like a rhythm. Oh, Oteil's got to go.
Sorry.
Well, stick around, Mike, please. So great to have you, man. We love you. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Stay warm, buddy.
Unlike our podcast, I can't just much love to all you guys.
Hey, be sativa.
Yes, I am. Bless you guys.
All right, man. Have a great second set. Mike, all right, stick around, Mike. I was going to say that, comedians really achieve a rhythm when a set is working. There's a way you play off the audience, and there's a way you use audience reaction and all that stuff. So there's a lot of kinship. And Oteil and I were talking about me being on your podcast, and because of my love for comedy and you guys, it's entirely possible that this Grateful Dead guy will come on your show and we'll talk about Blazing Saddles for an hour and a half. So prepare for that.
Yeah, but That's what we bonded on
You know-
right away, was stuff like that.
Right.
Using saddles.
Yeah.
Blazing
Yes.
Saddles, Monty Python, like the old SNL stuff. I think that one of the things that's very akin to both worlds is when you get to that point where you're not scared of silence.
Yes.
When you're able to kind of, when you're a young comic and you're able to get a spot on a show and you're nervous about that show and stuff like that, you're very aware of silence and it's your enemy. But as you get older and you kind of start to put that set together and you look at the Dead used to in between songs tune up and relax, light a cigarette, do whatever they had to do, and everybody waited. And in comedy, it's kind of a nice thing when you're able to realize, like, I could take my time, and that's important. And I really loved it.
That seems like on a very, like, that's a seconds to seconds kind of thing in the middle of a set. Your time scale is much tighter than the one musicians work on, right? It's fascinating.
Yeah. I guess I try to pay at least the least amount of attention to Earth time as possible. You know what I mean? Try to tap into that eternal clock, and the club luckily will flick a light on and tell you when it's time to get off. That's one thing about comedy is, like, they'll give you a 5-minute warning and you're like, all right, come back down to earth, but it was very scary during the pandemic to think about, like, what's comedy going to be like? Because good comedy, New York City comedy, is a basement with a low ceiling and one bathroom for 500 people and everything that the pandemic was like a void, and when we were able to come back gradually, and people were coming out and we were standing behind plexiglass, and It was like doing stand-up in a penalty box. Some of us I was doing it in a drive-in movie theaters and stuff, and rooftops, anything we could do. And it was just that feeling of being able to get back into it and see people enjoy it. That was what was really important, and the music is the same thing. I mean, we needed this. I missed live music so much during the pandemic, and to be able to come back and be able to see shows and do shows is really a blessing.
Yeah,
Indeed.
You know that, David.
Well, I've been playing at home every day.
I know, but you finally went out and did a live show. I know what you're doing. I'm listening all the time.
I've done like half a dozen outdoor gigs in the last 18 months. It's been very strange. I think I was had a less weird time doing a live stream from home because of doing radio for so long. I'm already used to talking to invisible audiences. So playing music for an invisible audience was less of a weird, disjunction for me, I suppose. But I miss connecting with people. Like, I can't wait to play a real house concert again when you can actually look at people or play a festival or something. It's been a while.
Yeah. It was weird to do stand-up comedy at a drive-in theater when people were in their cars tuned to a station hearing my jokes that I'm standing in front of them doing, and they would flash their high beams and beep their horns. That was like laughter and applause. And I'm like, what the hell planet am I on? Like, this is the craziest thing. Yeah, the Yarmouth Drive-In. It was nuts.
Did you get it? Were you able to get any information at all out of those reactions? I mean, could you tell how you were doing from those reactions?
Well, weird. I picked up quickly on the fact that, a joke that worked before we were in a drive-in back when in the earlier times would work. I started to understand, like, okay, I told a joke, I waited 2 beats, they beeped. That's laughter now. That's COVID laughter. Wow. So then I started to play, like, you know what I'm talking about over there. You got a headlight out. Like, I started doing crowd work to cars. I'm like, hey, your registration's expired in the 3rd row. And then I just got in the car and was like, I'm done. I'm going to go move to the Pacific Northwest and grow mushrooms with Paul or whatever.
Thinking about being in an audience at a drive-in movie theater with a busted headlight. That's just great. It's like a dog that can't wag its tail, right?
Yeah, totally. It's funny because we were planning on doing a bunch of live comes a time events wrapped around this Dead and Co tour, but then the Delta variant kind of kicked in and we had to cancel all of it. But we're hoping soon to be able to do, like, Oteil and I kind of have this thought about, like, that Bob Dylan Rolling Thunder review kind of thing where it was like, why not go on the road and be able to do some stand up, some music, some podcasting, some, fun, goofy prankster stuff in there and really just see where it goes,
Sounds like great fun to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the more positive, if you can call it positive, aspects of the pandemic is it encouraged all kinds of really creative thinking in terms of alternatives to the way you've been working all this time, and obviously it's not an ideal situation to play a drive-in, but no one would have thought of it otherwise, and even though it's not the ideal, it could mutate into something else really interesting. I've seen people really do some brilliant stuff within the confines of what they've been confined to. So it hasn't been a bad time creatively, I don't think.
Well, and what's funny too as a comic is, like, you kind of start to know these are the good rooms, these are the bad rooms, these are the rooms that I could go work stuff out with no consequence. Pandemic versions of that were like, well, this diner parking lot in Queens is like the hot show to do now. Like this rooftop in Gramercy is killer, and there's buildings blocking the wind and you can't hear helicopters, and you just had to adapt and react, but that's Grateful Dead, right? I mean, that's what you do. You just take the cards you're dealt and play them. And I have to say, though, in all honesty, the ability to do this podcast during the pandemic has been such an unbelievable blessing. I mean, this music has been the most important thing to me my entire life. And then to be able to chat with Oteil and Bob Weir and Oteil and Mickey and Oteil and Billy and John and, everybody. And I just shut my laptop and I'm in my living room alone. And I'm like, did I just talk to Bob Weir about death? Like, seriously, Did that just happen? It's the most unbelievable blessing. I'm so unbelievably honored and happy. And I don't let that go for granted, for sure.
Are you playing live gigs at all?
The cities, we're back. We're doing it. We've been doing a ton of shows. I have a bunch of shows coming up. I'm doing a theater in Connecticut. I'm in Long Island in a couple weeks. I'm at the clubs in the city regularly all week, every week. And it's been good. It's the New York clubs have done a really great job at keeping everybody safe and keeping the health of everyone, proof of vaccination or a negative test, and making sure all the comics are safe. And it's been an uphill climb, but we're doing it. And so happy to be back.
That's great. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
And I assume people can find you in the usual places by knowing the spelling of your name, which is written there on the screen.
Put the little A in the front of that. And it's all that. And then MikeFenoy.com's got all the dates and stuff. And Comes a Time pod on all the social media stuff. And we got a lot of great things happening. We have that live event coming up soon, the Crystal Ball, which you can find out about on our website. And it's super important for us to connect with the audience and let them be the guest for once, it's really, really cool.
Well, because you're both people who perform live, doing a podcast is a very different form of communication, as we've just been discussing, but both of you are experienced and seasoned and primarily live performers. So finding a way to do the podcast thing in a live setting is an obvious and really fun challenge, seems to me, like to, bring the energy of those two modes together.
Yeah, totally. And it's kind of funny because our event's going to be live, and it's akin to you two. And I'm a huge fan of Tales from the Golden Road. And I'll tell you, one of the things I love about it is, man, every fifth call is just the most left field, crazy ass call. That's just like, hey, what's up, man? This is Rock from Crested Butte, and I'm just wondering if anybody else saw that cloud that was shaped like a dinosaur at Red Rock.
Not like that.
Come on, are you kidding?
I would say our spun factor is maybe down in the 2.5%. Man, we have amazingly good luck with calls. We got a rambler from time to time, but man, we got such great people calling us. Seriously.
So,
No, of course.
Sometimes the out there stuff is the most fun and the best challenge. Yeah. Listen, Mike, we're getting the word we got to wrap it up because the band is converging on the stage again. This has been such a joy having you. What a treat having Oteil. Thank you, Oteil, and everyone who helped make it happen. So we'll be keeping an eye out for you, Mike. I will visit you guys on the podcast as soon as we can hook it up. And best to you on everything you're doing.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And enjoy the
second
set.
You too. Thanks. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jacob Lima, for making it all work.
Yes, indeed.
buckle, you know she ain't the same. Living a red to the bottom and seeing cocaine. All the friend can say is a fucking shame. The trucking out to Buffalo, baby. You got to mellow slow. It takes time. You pick a place to go. Just keep trucking on. Sitting and staring out of the hotel window. I got a little pick on me, kick the door in.